You're listening to the Light Overtime Podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is May 7th, 2023, and Sony still has not updated the A7S III and the A1, and I think we might know why, and it's a huge pain. How are you doing today, David?
I'm okay. I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm great. What you drinking?
Another Ethiopia that I did not roast. Buddy of mine roasted some Kambata, some good blueberry juice. It's wonderful.
Very nice. I, again, have some factory drip. I went and got a latte earlier and hung out with Evan and Hope for a little while. And it's beautiful out today. But I did have to fight some carpenter bees for a while, which was exhausting and painful.
Nice.
But yeah. So what you been shooting this week, man? We haven't spoken that much.
Yeah. So I slowed down on the wildlife a little bit. Some of the stuff that I really want to shoot has not been... I went out a couple of times, and the weather's been super ideal for me to go out there like I have been. Rainy and cloudy is actually really nice. It's like the trail is kind of like there's a canopy. So like if it's raining a little bit, I'm pretty well protected. And then if it's super cloudy, diffused light everywhere is really, really nice. So I've been spending more time out there, but for whatever reason, the birds are like hanging out way high up in the trees. I don't want to shoot up into the sky. That's not a picture worth taking, really. So I tried a couple times, didn't really pan out. Really happy with the stuff I got the week prior with like the winter wren and all that. So I'm still posting those images, but I did have a commercial shoot this week.
Oh, tell me about that.
Yeah, every once in a while we have influencers, quote unquote, come up, and with the Visitors Bureau here in Charlevoix, they kind of get free reign with some funds to go do things around town to promote being in this town. And every once in a while, I'll get hired on to spend about an hour or two with them doing whatever that thing is. And this time it was hanging out at the castle in Charlevoix. And if you don't know much about Charlevoix, there's this building, these grounds with like an actual castle on it. And that's only like 2 stories for most of the buildings, but it's really cool. It's got history. It's actually got a long history of rock bands from like the 80s, 70s and 80s into the 90s, and then it shut down for a long time. So there was a lot of concerts that used to go on there. And now it's back up and running as a very touristy place to go for like wine tastings. And in the summer, it's weddings every single day, basically.
Yeah, my mom performed a wedding there not too long ago, and that was the first time I kind of heard about it.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. If you're in Charlevoix, it's worth like you can do like little tours, and there's events of all kinds there throughout the summer. Like I said, there was a wine tasting. So we spent an hour. It was a little bit rainy, so it was actually kind of a challenge to shoot like commercially to make it look super nice. Because we had the umbrellas, we were walking around the grounds doing indoor and outdoor. And I don't use artificial lighting, so we just did everything, which was nice. Like the clouds, like kind of like wildlife, diffused lighting all over the place. That wasn't the issue. We had a lot of like raindrops and stuff. So what ended up happening was the shoot was about an hour, which is very typical. With all the outdoor stuff, it expanded my editing time quite a bit, like editing out little raindrops. And then the grounds are not quite prepared for like the full tourism season yet. So I was editing out all kinds of like stains on concrete that should be pressure washed by now, but they just weren't, and lots of little things that like the rain brought out, for whatever reason. So but it went fine. The images were great. I think I sent over like about 120 edited images for that hour, which is pretty on typical. And it was a good time. A couple, just it was good.
Nice. Love to hear that.
How about you?
Yeah, I nothing too crazy. Did some stuff for work. Played around with the 20-70 for the last couple of days, which has been fun. F4, man, just isn't that big of a deal anymore. Like I said, if you saw those photos I posted of me and the pups in my story, like those are at like 3200 ISO, and they look as clean as they could be. And they're shot at F4. They still have pretty creamy backgrounds for 50 mil at F4.
Yeah.
And just trying to play with those 2 lenses. Shot a lot of stuff at a class last Tuesday with the 70-200, and just that's the crux of that Lumix system is you just can't point shoot like you can with the Sony. and
It's that hesitation for the AF you're talking about.
it's like the sluggishness, because the AF I think is working fine on the Lumix, but like
But it's
if
getting
you
focus and then taking the shot.
yeah, like if you half hold the shutter and then you move at all to like reframe and do something else, it'll like lag the whole thing, and it makes you feel like you're just gonna miss all the shots.
Interesting.
And I don't like that. I like that, like when I click the Sony, it's like do 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 do, let's go, boo boo boo, and it's like the A7 IV is not the fastest Sony camera. You know, I think what is it, still 10 FPS or something.
Yeah.
And so, and I can maximize that with the 70-200. That thing can shoot as fast as it can go. And it can autofocus as fast as it can go, so I don't really miss any photos when I'm blasting at high plus. But it was kind of that, hey man, I know you're upset, but this still is probably the best sub $3,000 camera on the market. So until somebody can come close to it, because I don't think anybody's close to it. Like, I was looking at the R6 II, no chance. I was looking at the Lumix, and I really liked it for video. It's almost perfect. Can't trust it for photo. Like, right now I only have one camera. I'm waiting to buy like a big system again. Yeah, it was nice though to know that the tools I do have are every bit as good as I possibly could ever need them to be. It's just that I'm a little upset with the Sony thing, which we could jump into that next if you'd like, or something else. I am gonna get the teleconverter. I've decided, because
Nice.
I'm gonna stick to this setup. I think I'm gonna order the teleconverter this week, so I should have it to come up to the workshop and stuff if that still ends up happening. All that.
Yeah.
We'll do a little bit of wildlife and we'll give it a good testy test and stuff. But what that Niles guy or whatever his name is, I can't remember what the dude's name was, but his video is pretty good. The one that you sent me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna do every bit as good as it possibly can. And then actually, what sold me was Jared Polin's 100-300 video.
I haven't watched it yet. I just knew he made one.
Yeah, so that's in here as well, as one of my topics, but nothing crazy. Just running the 2x on it makes it a 200-600 f5.6. You know what I mean? Like,
This is incredible.
it's a ton of money. Obviously, like that's not whatever. But the person that's going to buy that lens probably is also flirting with the 600 f4, which is $19,000 or whatever it is. So like we're talking very, very professional, but some of the stuff he got at some baseball and soccer games, he was like, I legitimately wouldn't have gotten with the 300-2.8.
Sure.
Because he'd rock back to 100, and it's like it's still 100-2.8, and it's 300-2.8. It killed their prime. He says he doesn't think they're gonna do a 300 prime now, because why? It's too good of a lens. And then, Sony has a rumor that their 300-2.8 is going to come out soon. So I'm very curious what the price on that is, because that's enough money at that point that somebody would go to like an R3 or an R5 with the 100-300 if like the 300-2.8 is their lens. Like, I only shoot with that for like most of my professional work. That's a hell of a lens. That's a literal system shifting lens.
Yeah. It would be.
Which is pretty cool, but worth watching the video. I know you watch a decent amount of Jared Polin, so you don't find him insufferable. It's a solid video.
So I actually listen to his podcast so what happens is he releases like every Thursday night or Friday, and so on my way to the Boyne City markets, I pretty much listen to on the drive, finish it up on the drive home. I don't actually watch most of his videos, but if he talks about something in the podcast, I tend to go watch that video and see what he's talking about. So I am interested in that video, because not many people have had their hands on that lens yet.
Yeah, and it's super cool. I think legitimately some of the shots he got are pretty fantastic for some Phillies baseball and some soccer he did. The rainy soccer shots are cool as hell. I'd love to shoot a rainy soccer game like that. It's super, super cool. But he ran it a bunch with the teleconverter, and obviously you're gonna take a small hit, but we're talking about systems that are so crazy now that like he's like, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily recommend a teleconverter before, but this is a like 200-600 f5.6.
Yeah,
like my dude. I'm stoked for 140-400 f5.6, because I think that's fantastic. So yeah, pretty cool. So that was the hook, line, sinker for me to and I have the creator discount, so the teleconverter's only like $438 brand new.
Cool.
So not too bad. It saves me $1,500 buying a used 200-600 again, because it's probably all I need.
Yeah.
But this is going to be an exciting week because on the 10th, we believe the Nikon Z8 will be announced,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
getting spicy.
It is. For the last few days, it's been a little quiet. I actually just perused NikonRumors.com for just a minute before the recording started, and there's like nothing like worth talking about in the last like 4 or 5 days. But I was talking to a couple other photographers I know who are interested in switching systems, and somebody was like, "Should I buy a D850?" And I'm like, "Hold on. The D850 is the best DSLR ever made, but mirrorless is the future. If you want a backup camera, D850 used is not the worst idea. But if you really want to switch systems and spend some real money, just wait a week. Just get like D850 users who've been loving their D850 for years have been waiting for this moment for years. This is going to be the one worth waiting for. Watching this announcement should be pretty interesting. I'm excited. I don't even think I'm in the space to consider this. Like, I don't have I'm not interested in moving systems this early into owning 2 Sony bodies right now. But if I was, this would be the one to like consider.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome shakeup. I'm excited to see what some of the creators do. Like I said on, I think the last episode of the episode before, I really want to see some creators move to it.
Yeah.
Obviously the landscape guys and the wildlife guys you follow, they're all pretty into it, but
Yeah.
like to see it be relatively mainstream would be really cool. I think they're pretty damn close. I think their 3D tracking is super good. I think their the Z9 features are pretty solid. So if they rock out like a really sick around 50 megapixel like really killer body, I'm
Yeah, if I can speak on that for just a second, the landscape guys Nikon has been kind of a favored system for those landscape diehards for a while, and one of the guys I watched, Thomas Heaton, very heavily alluded to him having an NDA on a product that he can't talk about, but I'm pretty sure if you have an NDA, you aren't really even supposed to say you have an NDA and allude to it's a product that's releasing like the next week, right?
Yeah.
He might be in hot water for that. However,
was that in his he did a 7.2 video last week or something like that, because I watched a Z7 II video.
Yeah, he's been using a Z7 or a Z7 II for a little while now.
Yeah, he just did a video of it last week talking about like the one thing that really kills it for him.
I missed that one. I'll have to go check. But I watched whatever most recent one as of recording today was, and in the very last like 3 minutes of that video, he's like, check out my next video because I've got something that I'm going to be using that I have an NDA for. It's like, whoa, he's being very not super conspicuous on this. It's pretty heavily implied he's got the Z8 and has been spending some time with it. And Nikon is pretty good about lending out some of the stuff to creators with a couple of weeks ahead of time. And I'm not surprised. If there was going to be a product that they were going to give some time to creators to use to do a big old marketing push, this would be the one. So I'm really hoping that it just nails every aspect of what they need to hit as far as AF goes. It's going to be fine for landscape guys. Anything like the Z7 II is fine for landscape guys. It's got to do a lot more to be mainstream and have real creators of all kinds talking about this camera.
Yeah, and I think it could.
Mm-hmm.
Like we talked about when the S5 II came out, that huge marketing campaign, where like all Nikon needs to do is actually get this in people's like hands and have an interesting product.
Yeah,
because they just haven't done enough of that. It's cool to have like those really they have like their image, which is like professionals that like aren't fun creator types. Because like maybe there is a little bit of a hit to like their fundamental like marketing message when it's creators using their stuff, right? Like they don't really care about YouTube like that,
right?
Whereas like obviously Thomas Heaton and a couple of those other guys you've mentioned in the past are like YouTubers kind of first now.
Yeah,
they're not professionals, which is
right.
Which is why I think it's not going to be surprising when Thomas Heaton drops a video for the Z8. Especially a holdout for that system, as long as he would have been. It's super interesting. I'm excited. I think there's tons of reasons to be excited. They have a great lens selection. Like it's rivaling Sony in terms of like They might have a 180 to 600 they're speculating, which is pretty wild, instead
I
of a
just
200
read
to
something about
600.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, and like that would be pretty stellar. Like that's a nuts lens.
that is yes,
So so
yes.
it's quite interesting. I think
I
it's going to
think
be a
the
dicey
guy
episode next
to
week.
watch, and you know what? I've talked about Morton Hilmer before. He's one of the other guys. If you want to see what this can do outside of just like what Nikon shooters usually do is landscapes, his focus on wildlife, I think he might purposefully try to, because I wouldn't doubt that Morton Hilmer is going to be part of this marketing push. He's probably got one. He's much better at hiding this, until after the fact. So I wouldn't doubt he's got one. I would watch for his video when that drops, and he takes a little more time, so it might not be right away. But check out Morton Hilmer if you haven't. He's a Nikon ambassador, so he usually gets his hand on this stuff. This Z8, I would love to see, as a wildlife shooter myself, how that handles with wildlife. Wildlife can be some of the most challenging stuff for AF to tackle, especially birds, especially anything in flight or moving quickly. And Morton Hilmer is going to be the guy because he's so talented. I mean, not
and
just
he's going to be
with-
running 800s and stuff on this thing.
He's got every lens he could ever want that's like tens of thousands of dollars, or even, you know what, in some of his past videos, he's not afraid to just bust out a Tamron 150 to 600. The dude can use whatever and get it done, but he's also a Nikon ambassador, so he's got access to anything he wants to use. I'm waiting for his video. I think it'll be really exciting to see if he pushes the autofocus on that camera to show us more than what previous Z7s, Z6s do, and if it holds up to what the Z9 has been known to do, or if it's even better. Who knows?
Yeah, because there's one thing, like Jared will get his hands on some of this stuff and he'll have really good real world review footage, but he's always doing people, and we know that the algorithms in these like autofocus systems are getting really good with people's eyes. But there's a little bit more trickiness when it comes to birds and foxes and fast moving. So it is impressive to see when something does really well. Like I think I remember when those like F11 telephoto zooms came out from Canon, and we were like, oh shit, they're like bird eye autofocus is nuts. Like while flying from, like 200 meters away, they're getting like locking onto this bird, and you're like, oh,
I remember
man.
that, dude. When the R5 launched plus those lenses, there was nothing to beat that. And I still think that's probably the case, although I've not used anything from Canon in a long, long time. But I've seen the videos. I know what the R5 is capable of, the R6 II, the R3. Their wildlife tracking is impeccable. So
it's surprising I haven't seen, and it's just probably not on my radar. There's probably people doing it, but I haven't seen too many people running like longer lenses and stuff. But they also don't have their mount opened up to like the 150 to 600 from Sigma and stuff, which is insane to me. I know there's some videos that I've seen with the RF to EF adapter with the old one. I've seen the EF mount sport on people's cameras, but you're talking a lot. You're asking a lot of that system to run that old heavy ass sport lens and
they seem workable, but you're definitely not hitting the potential from what I've seen of some of the newest stuff on those R5s and R6s. The wildlife tracking, little tiny birds in the frame, I mean, it just sticks and it's fluid. It looks great. So hopefully the Z8 finally can be a camera where we talk about Nikon in a way that doesn't make them seem like third place, just like a solid third, right? Like if we can talk about Nikon in a way where you talk about autofocus in a sense of, well, they're all about the same, right? That's not been the case since Nikon's been in the mirrorless game. So I would really like to see them have something to show for autofocus.
Yeah, they'll get a huge, I think they'll have a huge wildlife market share if they can lock into some proper animal autofocus. And their 3D tracking and stuff is good. Like they have good technology in those cameras. So like it's just dialing in that last little bit to catch up and then potentially surpass what is already happening, because the A7 IV is a $2,500 camera that has impeccable autofocus, like animals and then a separate bird autofocus, right? And then I can't remember what camera it is. There's what was I was just watching it. There's a camera that can automatically switch between the detection, And that's a shame that Sony's not too good at that. I'd like to see that updated in the next
Oh, okay,
couple
not
of.
too good. Because I know when you go in to select between animal, bird, or human, that you can check mark all of them.
Right.
And I honestly don't know how well that works because I'm not going from humans to birds to animals like other than birds in any case, really. If I go out for wildlife, I'm probably shooting birds most of the time. And honestly, it's weird to me that we do have. I guess it's not that weird, but when I'm out shooting wildlife, I pretty much only keep it on birds because it's mostly birds. But like every once in a while, I'll see a deer or a muskrat or something. It's not like that's bad when I see one of those types of animals. It works still. So I do wonder, if, like you said, if there's like a human or something, how well does that really switch it? That's a hard one to quantify, I think.
Oh, totally. It's just going to be a lot of user experience, and there's just frankly not a lot of documented Nikon user experience yet.
Yeah.
Not nearly as much as Sony, which is like
Right.
every influencer's running their stuff, and then the Canon holdouts.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm excited. It's going to be an exciting week, at least in news. I'm sure we'll talk about it quite a bit next week.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that for now. So the Andre Pizzini, the Sonyalpharumors guy.
Yeah.
He has a video where somebody had a forum post, and he's discussing why this person's discussing why they believe the segment is working against itself to update something like the A7S III and the A1.
Oh, talk
And
about that because I haven't seen that.
yeah, so I watched his video and I looked into it a little bit, and I'm trying to make it make sense because it still seems kind of dumb. But they both seem pretty certain. I guess the one guy who made the forum post, this is like fourth party. I'm sorry. I wish I had more, but I'll link the YouTube video and
Sure.
stuff that Andre Pizzini did. But so it sounds like the three divisions of the cameras are separate entities within the company. So the creator, alpha, and cinema lines are all separate like departments. And regardless,
when you say creator, is that ZV type cameras? Yep. Okay.
So yep, ZV-10, ZV-1, ZV-E1.
Sure, okay.
That's a
Now
different.
these are, do they share? So they're sorry to interrupt. But designers versus like engineers who actually figure out how to make the shit work. Are you talking about separate divisions completely down the pipeline?
I'm talking at what I know is like the department for marketing and sales and stuff like that at minimum is different. And each of them, they say, has their own marks they have to hit. So a creator line doesn't necessarily care if they're going to push into an alpha line's camera because they just have to sell X. And Sony up top, I imagine, trying to chew through this myself with the little bit of business experience I have and my education, was like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense because then maybe their strategy for the quarter or the year must be that, okay, so you have this much money. We need to get all these creators on this camera because this camera is going to be like the YouTuber camera. We're going to sell this % more of any of these cameras over an A7S III. That's already old. We don't care. We're not giving you the marketing budget for you to push that. And so like maybe the software developer just goes, it gets pushed down to those guys and they're like, no, you're not going to do a firmware update for that. Don't worry about it. We're worrying about this camera right now because we need to push this many units because this is what we've basically promised our board to our shareholders, that this is the amount of revenue we'll get. All of those, I'm spitballing because I don't want to get too technical, but it's literally all of those levels are being met up. So, okay, creators, we need to drop all of this. The cinema line, the FX30 is probably going to sell a lot more units at sub $2,000 than all of our competitors. So obviously that's going to get those things. And while there's these people running these flagship cameras that are a couple years old now, it's like, well, we already have those. We're working on those. By the time we flip enough of these things, there will be another alpha push maybe in the fall when they drop that new body. But it's just bad business in my opinion. Like, it's probably really good for shareholders and money now, But it's definitely super corporate mentality. Like, it's definitely not like consumer first mentality. It's the segmentation doesn't make sense to me, because at the same time, it's like, okay, well, why wouldn't the alpha then go, well, no, we need to put this on, so we got to sell this many. Like, what is the alpha division working on? Is the alpha division putting all of their chips into the upcoming A6700? And they're saying, okay, well, we're going to, because this thing is supposed to have the ZVE1 autofocusing AI. It's supposed to have 4K 120. It's basically probably going to push really hard onto the FX30's territory, because it's going to be a hell of a photo camera. So I don't know how they're going to cripple the video features necessarily yet. But they're like, okay, well, my coins are already, put in the A7S III basket from last year. We got this 6700 coming, and it's going to sell shitloads of units because the 6000 series is like long dead, right? So this is kind of, I've moved on to my next topic, which was the A6700, but that's kind of my take on it, because that's the only way that it would make sense that the alpha division wouldn't just go, all right, well, F you too, I'm going to just give my cameras anamorphic. Hey, look, the A7S III has anamorphic now, and it has a viewfinder, so eat it, FX3.
Yeah, that's a lot of speculation, like you said, from like a fourth party. I haven't seen it, and even this is tough, because you would think there's certainly been enough talk, enough videos made, enough posts on forums, enough comments on their actual, verified pages of people just screaming into the void at this point.
Dude, Casey at Camera Conspiracies is killing me. Every one of his videos, he had another one this week, and everyone is just like straight from my brain into his video. And I was like, dude, I haven't watched your content in like 2 years, and now it's my favorite, because it's just like, bless.
At this point, the heads at Sony just must be covering their ears, closing their eyes, and just ignoring what everyone else sees the big problem is.
Brother, I'm in their DMs daily now.
It's legitimately ridiculous at this point. Yeah. Most companies who have some sort of presence on social media would acknowledge a problem like this, because it's becoming a problem. They are really actually losing system users. People are dumping tens of thousands of dollars worth of their equipment because how badly this burns,
Yeah.
They're losing money.
Yeah. I saw.
It's like chopping off one arm to gain another for the ZV line, right? Like, what are they doing?
I don't. Maybe it's just like keeping market like power. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, they know how much they've slowed down on A7S III sales.
Sure.
I imagine the
of course.
I imagine the FX3 eats a bunch of the A7S III sales, and they're like, well, that was kind of dumb. We blew it. We thought that they would be different enough that people would get it. Then they put the A7R5 out, and they're like, now people are really not getting the A7S III, because for a couple $100 more, they get this crazy 8K camera, which is a spec that I think is so dog crap, because the A7S III right now is literally that firmware update away from being their best camera.
Sure.
Their absolute best camera. Like, that's all it needs to be literally, in my opinion, their best camera. I would probably get rid of this and go back to one if it had all those updates. Mm-hmm. Because I've missed the super fast sensor. I've missed the low light. I really miss S-Log 3 at 12,800. Like, I miss those things.
Yeah.
Almost every time I get to shooting. So I don't know. It's truly crazy. I can't believe I haven't seen their social media reply to me or anyone else.
I know.
Because generally when I start, because I'll get on them at like 10 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And then other people, I'm so sorry, Sony, a little bit, because the guy who's working the social media, I feel you. I've been there. I run a social media for a company. We're not nearly as big as you, but we have 145,000 followers. And I've been there where I'm like, heck yeah, I got a cool post, gonna get some engagement today. And then the first guy opens up just a wormhole of shit. And you're like, why? Like, we're working on that problem. as we speak, and now this whole comment thread is only going to be that. I was trying to have a good day. So
Right, but here's the thing. If you got that guy enough times, eventually you're incentivized to just come out and say we're working on it, right?
yeah,
Why aren't they saying that?
I again, not as big as Sony, but I comment on those naysayers when they hit me on those threads.
Sure.
Like, I don't even care if somebody just, I want them to acknowledge me. Notice me, senpai.
Yeah.
tell me, like, we understand, you know,
Yes.
there's a lot of moving factors. We're trying to sort out exactly what we're going to do.
That would be the thing to do, and people
Yeah.
would chill, and they would legitimately stop people from moving away if they just said some words like that.
Yeah,
Even if they weren't even working on it right now.
They're so lucky this is still the best sub $3,000 camera, or else, like,
Yes.
it would be so easy to leave. I was this close to leaving, dude. I was so jacked on that Lumix S5 too.
Yeah.
And it
The
just
the
like,
shitty part is they know it. They just know it. You
yeah,
know?
of course they do. Well,
And
'cause
you're
they know
not
their
gonna go.
market
What are you gonna
share.
do?
Yeah, they see their market share. They know who has what.
Yeah.
Dude, they have so much freaking marketing data behind this thing that it's like, I think they just over segmented, which we've also talked about. And it's like,
Yeah.
dude, can you just like get the A9 and the A1, slam those together, make that like the super dope like photo flagship that can handle a little video, make the A7S IV really good, and then get whatever the 5 will be, or just like keep supporting the A7 IV for a little while, and you'll be fine. Just calm
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And then, like, sure, I guess you have these like creator cameras, and like maybe they do really well, but I think they're awful. And I think not having an EVF is stupid, and all the things I've said a million times. But it's like, it's to the point where I'm looking at the rumored specs of the A6700, and I'm like, I think this is probably my next Sony camera. Like, it's gonna be able. I already have to live with cropped 4K 60, which I hate. Like, another thing I want my A7S III for is at least 4K 60, but 4K 120, all full frame, right?
Yeah.
And this thing's going to be, it's going to have a 1.19 crop rumored for the 4K 120, but it probably is just going to stay Super 35 for the 4K 60. I'm fine with Super 35 for video. I'm fine with APS-C images. I like Fuji, and I other than it being old, I didn't hate my A6500 as far as like taking images. But it looks like the A6700 is going to have a front thing, if that's real, a front wheel.
Oh, okay.
So it's gonna still have the EVF over to the side. But if it has like, if they go full joystick, like full controls, where it's like a prosumer, like a 7D, like a proper prosumer APS-C camera, it might be enough for me, and it might be hundreds of dollars cheaper than going with a second full frame that I could rock. And if it had a S-Log's fine, but if it has even S-Cinetone, I can use it as a C camera at work, and it'd be pretty
I can't
dope.
see any new camera nowadays that they have any kind of video focus on not having S-Cinetone anymore.
I mean, you would hope.
You would hope. You would hope. Now, I do remember when you had the 6500, you were having issues with color in video. If that is not alleviated, I mean, what would your thoughts be?
It was alleviated on the A64, 66, and 61. So it was just because I had the older camera. The 63 and 65 were the same generation, and then the 61, 64, and 66 were all a higher generation. And those are better. And I've used the A6400 at camp. We had one A6400 and two A6500s. And I think even the A6600 has somewhat updated autofocus and things like that. It was actually every bit as better. The only thing that I actually didn't like is that it didn't have pro controls at the end of the day. I could have worked around it, but I hated not having a joystick. I think using the touch screen with the lag that screen has for moving my autofocus point is miserable. And it's just, it's not a good experience. I don't think it ever will be. I don't like touchscreens. I don't like touchscreen laptops, Linus. Sorry. I just don't like touchscreens. I would love to have a full real keyboard on my cell phone. Just the way it is. But yeah, so I'm excited. Should be a pretty high-end APS-C camera. I think I would use it. I'd probably get like one really nice, as small as I can, compact APS-C prime, but then I'd just run my G Master glass on it for the rest of the time.
Sure.
And maybe that will alleviate some of my issues. I'll have relatively good video performance. I'd love to see it get the FZ100 battery. I can't remember if the A6600 has that. I think it does. But yeah, pretty exciting. It does. Yeah, the A6600 does have the FZ100. So if that's the case, then let's go.
Yeah.
I'm in. Let's freaking do it. Make that camera good. Let it have a mechanical shutter. Make the EVF not miserable. And like, sure, dude, if you're trying to step, I don't know, maybe you're trying to step on Fuji as like Alpha's next push, because maybe they can't compete in the APS-C or like I don't know, or maybe they just want the A7 IV to get like 2 more years of service, so they're just gonna like push an APS-C camera because they know a bunch of people won't leave the A7 IV for it.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of Sony, I don't know if this is in your notes because I don't get to look at that stuff anymore. Have you heard of the Sony working on the dual layer sensor technology? Did you look at that?
I don't ever really look at like what they're doing sensor wise, because any kind of update, half the time it's not even for alpha cameras.
No, in fact, this is supposed to be an announcement coming soon for a phone. And I know we talked about this before. You don't care too much.
Yeah, you brought up the Xperia.
But it could eventually translate into bigger sensors for cameras. But I don't know much about it because we're waiting on an announcement still. But they're supposedly looking at some new sensor technology that could, quote unquote, be revolutionary as far as doubling performance in different ways, dual layer sensor technology. If there's a significant announcement about that, I'll do some digging into that and talk about it at some point in the future. It could be cool. I don't know. I just was curious if you'd heard about it.
Yeah, no, once I see the Xperia, I just stop. I just like tune it out, and because I'm not going to not have an iPhone. Like Sony would have to do a lot to get me to go to a non-iOS device for my phone, because I just want my freaking first-party apps to work. And Android has proven to me, every single one of my friends with an Android has problems at least once a year with one of the major apps that I use every day. iOS
yeah, even my Pixel, dude, I can't use like Instagram, half of Instagram's features, dude. And that might be Instagram's fault, but surely
it's gonna be, right? Like it's partially Instagram's fault, but
it's always exactly.
everybody has iOS devs. It's easy to be an iOS dev. You kind of lock into this one thing and you're not making features for like different processors and worrying about all this stuff. It's because it's easy. And I just want my freaking phone to work. And everyone's like, you're an iPhone user? It's like, yeah, dude, I was building like DOS computers when I was a child. Like, get over your like, I'm a Apple person. Like,
when it's a product you use every single day and you need it for a lot of things, reliability is nothing to laugh about. That's
for sure. And like iOS has its problems, sure, but not nearly as bad as my experiences and my close friends' experiences with Android. I don't want root access and all that stuff to my phone. I don't need it to act like that. I want it to just like last 5 years. And I had a freaking 4S for like almost 5 years. I had a 7 Plus for like 3.5, and the only reason I got rid of it was because of the freaking port. I just treated it poorly and it finally died. So like I probably would have had my 11 Pro for years if I didn't lose it in the Philippines. So now I have a 13 and it's like, okay, well, I'll see you in 4 because I'm going to have this phone for a long time. It's just crazy. And like we talked a little bit about it, but I just truly don't think I care about, like, my cell phone takes pretty okay photos. I can do a lot with Lightroom's camera. I use Lightroom Mobile for my camera whenever I want to take a picture that actually means something. And I'm pretty happy with the results a bunch of the time. But the amount of effort I have to make a good image on a phone is infinitely more energy expelled than just grabbing my 35mm on my Sony and going bloop and then editing the raw file.
Yeah,
you can do
I think
tons with a phone, but it's not nearly as easy.
Yeah, certainly the combination of what camera it is, basically the sensor, and the combo of lens choice you make makes grabbing that camera and taking a banger shot much easier. There is a lot more work involved. You're right, a lot more work involved grabbing your phone and making a shot that is, I don't know, subjectively amazing or something. But there is also something to be said about just having the ability to whip the phone out, get the shot, no matter what it is. And for me, as a parent, there's a lot of moments throughout most days where I kind of want a shot of whatever I'm doing with my kids, and that's way more important than it being some artfully beautiful image. I kind of just want to document, because who knows, at some point I want to just relive lots of different little moments like that. And those are just as important to me as like going out and taking professional image, honestly.
Well, and I'll be clear, I actually am totally fine with iPhone like video. I make videos on my phone way more than I take photos, because like I usually don't have to edit them. I think the auto exposure and stuff for just snapping videos is pretty good. I like video short form content for stories a lot more than I like a photo. So like if I'm looking at a photo taken on my phone, it's usually HDR looking, like it's super flat, especially for work, because I have to make content every day, right? So it's almost always worth my time to just grab my phone, load it up in the Lightroom, send it right off to my phone when I'm done editing it really fast and putting it on to Instagram. So like I'm still mostly focused on stuff, because like when I'm hanging out with my friends and stuff, I super don't care what the image looks like. Like right. I want to be clear. I'll take cell phone photos if I'm hanging with the boys and doing some wild shit all the time. I don't care. It's always about I still look at photos from like my freaking Verizon Razzle that was like 1 megapixel piece of crap, like Chinese crap phone. Yeah. And I'll look at those and I'm like, hell yeah, that was an amazing time. Right. So totally. But when it comes to anything where I'm trying to create an image,
sure,
it's usually image first. It's not necessarily like a memory. Right. Those are two totally different things to me, and that's why I like photography. I like to make
absolutely nice if you've got access to both for whatever scenario is. Grab the camera. It's gonna give you better results, no problem. But sometimes you just don't. So I have no problem just grabbing that camera. If I have to put a little work into using my phone, go to portrait mode, think critically about composition, I do it because I have the background of doing that anyway. But you're right.
And maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's because my memory stuff, like I don't care about IQ. So like cell phones are good enough for that stuff all day long. Like making it groundbreaking in a phone again for whatever reason isn't really that meaningful to me, because I don't care. Like sure. I'm not pixel peeping. I don't care how much noise there is on that cell phone image of me and my friends at the bar. I just don't give a shit. But when I want to take like nice images, like I want them to be as clean as possible. I'm not going to take a photo of like a cool bird or like a groundhog or some shit on my phone and be like, this is a sick image ever, or a dog. Right. Cell phones are miserable at shooting photos of dark furred dogs. You're never seeing eyeballs. It's horrible. I've been shooting Oscar. He's scared of cameras like miserably, even if it's a cell phone. And he's just jet black. And he's got long like mustache, eyebrow hair. And it's like he is just a shadow. He might as well just be like a amorphous blob when you try to use a cell phone. Even in like sunlight, it's miserable. Yeah. So things like that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely cool. I would probably change my opinion a little bit if I had kids. But I also am of the idea that I'd be a lot more like Chris Brockhurst, who regularly uses his FX6 to film his kids.
I mean, that's cool. Yeah.
Because he has it and he does professional work with it. He's like, I want amazing memories of my children. And I'm like, I would do that.
Honestly. That's I mean, I really should put that kind of energy in, because man, we do a lot of cool stuff, and sometimes when you do so much, you might not remember all of it, and having the images, the videos, man, I've got the tools. Maybe I should think more like that.
His reels of him just like hanging out in the street with his children look amazing, because it's like straight up FX6, like S-Log3 footage. Wow. And he sits there and he grades it real nice, and he'll make like a little you know what I mean? I would do that all the time.
Yeah.
But
I only brought up that dual layer technology stuff because there's potential for the tech to develop and trickle up into the camera sector. So could be something to watch out for. That's all.
I mean, I think the way that I need it to go quicker is that like we just have more stack sensors, or we get global shutter. Yeah. And I think that's going to come from the other side. It's not going to come from down up. I guess generally I think the technology that will come up from cell phones will be probably creator, computational stuff, all the things I hate about like cameras.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, I guess I'm resting a little easier knowing that like corporations going to be corporations, and Sony's just like one of the biggest ones, and they're kind of blowing it with their segmentation. They're in that era of their business, which it happens. I've seen it happen to other companies.
Yeah, I mean, if what you were talking about is true with how the divisions are divided, this is, I mean, if that's true, we're looking at the potential hazard of that for a company where there's basically no communication and the development gets so spread out and weird that they start kind of eating into each other. That's a risk that Sony probably knew and took regardless. I mean, they're making loads of money. That's the point of a business. So
yeah. Well, and like, you know, Fujifilm kind of did the same thing. They made like 37 cameras in 2 years and like discontinued most of them within a year. Like they really did. I think they had like north of 10 different camera bodies on the FX mount or whatever, whatever their X mount. And I just hope it like gets a little dialed in. I still think I'm probably going to stick around for a little while longer unless something really crazy happens with one of the other systems. Because obviously, like, I would love to see Nikon go crazy. I'm not buying a Z8. That's like going to high. That's like just too high end, right? Like I would have to sell all of my stuff and add a couple $1,000s to build out what I need. Whereas like the only way it made sense with that Lumix was because the Lumix is cheaper than the A7.
You could get into the system, have the nice lenses. Yeah, because if you wanted a Z8, the price, I mean, at this point, honestly, I would be surprised if it was under $4,000 for the body. I kind of would be. I was thinking $38.99 for a little bit because I think the D850 was $35 or $36.99. But times have changed. I mean, it's been like what, 4 or 5 years since then.
Can you believe I didn't even realize this until somebody made some content of it last week? Maybe it might have been Casey. The R5 launched at $38.99, and then for the last like 2 years, it's been $42.99. It increased the price for 2 years.
That's wild. I didn't know that. But I think isn't that because they included, was that a bundle with the adapter or something?
I don't think so.
Well, wow. If that's true, that's pretty wild. I did not know that.
I think it was just during like COVID, like when all the logistics and supply chains were a mess. They were just higher money, and they just sold them for that forever.
Right. I believe also that the R5 did drop a couple $100 in the last week or so in preparation for this announcement.
Back down to $38.99.
Is it really only?
Yeah.
Wow. That's wild.
Like I wouldn't buy that like I was flirting with Canon. I'm a Canon shooter from back in the day. You know what I mean? I was like, man, they just don't have something between the R6 and the R5, and that's what I need. It's like everything, all the camera companies, I just need one tier higher than their lowest camera. Like I need one tier higher than an A7 IV.
Interesting.
And maybe that's only because I came from an A7R4 and an A7S3, right? That kind of kebabbed me a little bit, because I had like the sub flagships and then went down to their consumer camera. But yeah, it's like everything is so close or way too much.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's next week will be interesting. That's all I gotta say. There's excitement about this Z8, and it's worth every little bit of info we get our hands on. Yeah.
Talking about not being able to afford to go up to a more flagship camera, my next camera will be this. There's images of the Leica Q3 now, and I do want one because all the coolest people shoot a Leica Q.
Are they cool?
Yeah, they're cool. 28 mil, baby. You know, it's the Lord's focal length. It's everything that's perfect with the camera. Why would you ever need to change lenses? You know, you're not getting dust on that sensor, baby, ever, dude. Not even a chance. So, you know, if you got that extra 6,000 bones or 6,500 bones or 7, I don't even know what the Q goes for or what it's going to be. Maybe it's $59.99. If that's the case, baby, that's in the price range. That's a all inclusive package right there. You don't need nothing but a card, and it has internal memory. You don't even need a card. Never mind, dude. They got like a terabyte of internal storage. How
That is
sick
pretty
that?
cool, honestly. I wish more consumer cameras would be in that space to
Yeah.
have an internal SSD.
Nope, you gotta have Hasselblad or Leica money, baby. Sorry.
Right.
SSDs are expensive,
Man,
David.
I don't know. Yeah, right, dude. SSDs have bottomed out. This is kind of actually an interesting conversation. It's probably a space thing. I wouldn't be surprised, but anyway, that's a different topic of discussion.
Flash, NAND flash, buddy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's all owned by China. It's expensive. We gotta give up our last cobalt mines to be able to get our hands on that 3D NAND flash. But yeah, so I actually am kind of maybe if I just like get really stupid, I think I'm done buying all this stupid Gucci stuff for my other hobby. I've been spending a lot of money on my 1,000-yard rifle and stuff like that. So that's finally done. So maybe at the for my birthday, July 31st, if anybody wants to donate to my Leica fund, I'll get a Q3. Not too shab. But I do want to say, so I got not including David's submission for this month's photo sharing. I got somebody from my Discord channel who maybe listened to a couple episodes. I'm still waiting on my boy to. We have one guitar guy who's like devout, and so I think he'll probably try to splash up something. But if you got a black and white image and you want to be a part of this, it sounds like maybe the timing might line up that our live episode will be when we look at these images. So that could be fun.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, so I could pull them up on the iPad and we can talk about them live and stuff. That'll be kind of cool.
That would be sick.
So go ahead and there's the email down below. You can submit a black and white image for our thing. If we just have a couple, that's cool. It's going to take some time to gain the following to be able to do that well, but I figure we might as well do it. And at worst, me and David can tear apart each other's photos and critique them and say,
you guys get to see that too. So it's not like we'll just have nothing to talk about. We'll do them. We'll continue it. And if you guys want to take part, we'd be super excited to see it.
Yeah. I see the YouTube videos getting a little bit more traction, so hopefully in a couple more episodes they'll take off a little better. I am going to be better about making short form content to promote this, so you're not the only listeners.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's looking good. Everything's shaping up well. The gear world is going to get exciting again here for the next couple of months, I think. I think between May and June is pretty spicy, and then it'll get spicy again September, October. So not too shabby. I think that's all I got this week.
That's it for me.
Cool. There's still links if you're in Michigan and you're looking at maybe last minute signing up for this workshop David's doing up in DETOUR, Michigan, that state park, right?
DETOUR State Forest Campground. If you want some information, davidsargent.cc/workshops, if that's easy enough to remember, type up. You can find all the information right there. I'm sure there will be a link below, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify. And if you are on Spotify, leave us a review. We would love a 5-star review, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this. If you are on YouTube, drop a comment.
I'd love a 1-star review.
Hi.
Yeah, let's
let's fight. Yes, if you've got a 1-star, yes.
Yeah, rip me to shreds.
We'll throw gloves.
They're like, this guy only complains about Sony. He's so privileged to have nice gear, and he's just a whiny baby.
If you want to dump on us, I'd love to hear it. Absolutely.
Right on, man. But yeah, so shout out to freaking Andre Pizzini. We use Sonyalpharumors information almost every week, and some of the other websites that he also is a part of. I like the rumor stuff. I like the news stuff. Petapixels rocking, by the way. They had a couple of good episodes.
Dude, the black and white video was sick. I thought, what a cool take on this first. That was awesome. If you, yes, Chris Nichols, those guys, awesome first video on the Petapixel YouTube channel. If you are familiar with their work, I think you'll like it. If you are a holdout, if you don't want to sub to the Petapixel channel for whatever reason, just go check it out. It's a great video.
Yeah, they also did the Laowa 28 F1.2 They do have a video of that if you're interested. It's pretty wild. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's good to see those guys up and running now and the next era. They have a fun little like pixel art intro, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway, shout out to those guys. Close that chapter of the book of me talking about them as well. So that's all we got. Thanks for listening. See
Thanks,
you next
guys.
time.
See ya.
Bye.